Welcome to a tutorial about the faux embroidery here on this piece for the Nana's Visit pattern. This will look not like a lot when we start. We have worked some garter and then we have worked a little tiny bit of stockinette. We're going to work a 4-row repeat for this basic stitch, and I will show you in the first instance of it, and then it'll be very much the same in the next 2 instances, just with the colors reversed. So we're going to join our color number 1. We've worked the beginning of this piece in color 2. So now we're going to join color 1, and we're going to spend 4 rows slipping stitches. The first 2 rows we're going to be slipping the stitches that are in our color 2, and then we're going to spend 2 rows slipping the stitches with that we work in the contrast color here. So our first row here, the row 7 of this piece, is we're going to knit 2, the backwards loop increase or the E-loop increase, like so. There's a whole video on this that I will include in the description box below. And then we are going to slip the next 3 stitches with the yarn in back. We're always going to be slipping purlwise. We don't want to change the stitch orientation. If we slip knitwise, that changes how the stitch is oriented. So we don't want to do that. So we're slipping with the yarn in back, and that means in back of the work. So then we knit 1, slip 3 with yarn in back, knit 1. If you are hesitant to slip and you find your slipping stitches is very slow because you're worried about dropping a stitch, my tip for you is to make sure that your left needle is over your right needle, and then you can just sort of push them from one to the other and they'll just jump off. And because the right needle is below the left needle, they just get caught rather than falling into a gap between the needles. If you're always slipping from tip to tip, there can be space there where things can go missing and drop down, I should say. So then we'll knit 1, slip 3 all the way across to the last few stitches. Remember to make sure that your slipped stitches, that the floats behind aren't so tight that they're going to cause the work to buckle. If the float is short, what happens is this tightens up the fabric in front of it because it can't stretch out. So every few stitches, just make sure that you're kind of pushing the yarn back on the right needle tip just to make sure that it is as stretchy with the float as it should be with the stitches that don't have the float. So we want this to be about as stitchy as this. It will never be quite as, but we want to get close. So when we get to the last 5 stitches, we will slip 3, backwards loop or the E-loop cast on to increase there, and then we will slip these 2 with the yarn in front. We're always going to be slipping the last 2 stitches of this piece with the yarn in front, no matter which side we're working on. Turn the piece. The reason we're always working this with the yarn in front is so that when we come and turn, we can be knitting into it, and this basically works it like an I-cord. So this edge will be a 2-stitch I-cord, as will the other edge of this piece. So if we slip with the yarn in front, it's right there where we need it to be, as if we were working I-cord. So we'll just knit 2, and now I want you to knit this stitch here. Then we're going to slip 3 with the yarn in back. All right, we're on the wrong side, and so slipping with the yarn in back is actually going to put it on the right side of the work. So knit 1, slip 3 with the yarn in back. So you'll see what we're getting is we're getting a purl stitch on the front with this sort of a scallop of, or a running line of the contrast color floating in front there. Remember to occasionally just straighten all this out and feel if it feels tight or if your floats are going to need to be spread out. We want that to feel nice and like there is a nice fabric building up rather than a crumpled fabric. So just use your fingers to kind of feel that. All right, so we are back to our final edge. We will knit this stitch. That was the E-loop increase. and then we will slip it with the yarn in front. And again, in front means in front of the work. So be careful that you're not getting confused with right side, wrong side, and in the front and in the back. So when I write with the yarn in back, I mean with the yarn in back as we're working it, not in terms of the wrong side of the work. All right, we can break this yarn now. We are only going to be slipping stitches with it, so we don't need to keep it attached. All right, the next row, we will knit 2, do an E-loop increase. Because of the way I wrap my yarn around, I can do it this way, but if you don't wrap your yarn that way, you would just create a loop, tip it around and do that. Like I said, there'll be a separate video on this. And now we will slip the red stitch, the contrast color stitch, we're going to slip it purlwise. We're slipping everything purlwise, and then we knit 3. Slip, knit 3. After we've knit to the last 3 stitches, we will slip this 3rd stitch. We'll do our E-loop increase, and now we will slip these last 2 with the yarn in front. And now we're on the 4th row of our 4-row repeat to work this embellishment run. So we're going to knit 2, turning it into a bit of an I-cord, and you can already see that edge sort of forming a nice tidy little thing here. Then we will purl this first one, slip this one with the yarn in front, and then purl 3. So slip with the yarn in front of your work, purl 3. So in our last little bit here, we'll have 4 stitches. We'll have a red stitch to slip with our yarn in front, then we'll have an increased stitch to purl, which gets kind of tight, so just give yourself patience as you work through that. And the last 2 we slip with the yarn in front. In our next row, we're just going to be knitting right across all of those. So just knit right across, no matter what color it is, continuing to work your increases, of course. So this is what it looks like after row 12. Now we're going to cut our color 2 and start using color 1 as our background color. And we will do 2 more repeats of this faux embroidery in the contrast color on the background. So you will switch, in this case, from your black being your background to red being the background, and then working the slipped stitches here in the black. And we'll swap those out. So obviously we don't want the contrast color coming and showing through on the right side of the work. So one option is for you simply to weave it back through the floats. So going down this way and then coming back up and splitting the plies as you go. You can do that in a few places. You can also tie your ends before doing this if you'd like it to be extra secure. So just splitting the plies and bringing it through. Let me show you what that's going to look like. And so you've gone about 3 centimeters in one direction, and now to make that a little more secure, you can just kind of go back through that, making sure to split both the float and the new end, and just kind of go back a little bit. And usually when we're weaving in ends, if we go in 2 directions, that's a very secure way of doing it, and the odds that it's going to come unraveled are really, really low. So then I would just cut that and call it good. Take your end and bring it up here to where we have the little blips of that contrast color, not the main one with the strands running behind the yarn, but the one a couple rows up. And we will just go through that and then go through the next one. And then what you can do is you can knot in that yarn. So take your needle through and make a loop. Go through that loop twice. And then just push down with your thumb and finger and pull up with this and get as tight a knot as you can. If you just thread it back through the strand of yarn that you've left between those two dots. If you want, you can also like go a little farther in if you'd like this to be away from there, but if you just go back through the strand of yarn behind the work and then cut it, not too close, just sort of close enough so that there's a bit of room for it to stretch, then that'll work really well. That's what I've done here. This is what the embroidery looks like on this first section. So we've got the color 2 with color 1 as the embellishment, and then we switched to color 1 as the main color with color 2 as the embellishment. So it should look something approximately like this. If you want to simplify things and just add a stripe, you go ahead, you just knit there and back, maybe make it if you knit there and back, it'll be in garter. If you knit there and purl back, and it'll be in stockinette. Don't worry, the fashion police aren't coming for Gnana or the gnome police for you. Hope this helps.